Congratulations, class! You passed your first exam! Okay. So you just passed your first exam, you just kind of want to relax and take it easy, and here I am lecturing you on Chapter 8. When does it end? Why do we keep doing this? I don't know about you guys, but I am exhausted. I am tired, sweating, I need to mop up all the sweat. Why do we keep doing this in the business school, just working so much, while your LNS friends are just sitting around partying every single weekend, and you're just always in the library doing work? Why do we keep doing these things? This is why.
Don't stop, make it pop, DJ blow my speakers up tonight. I'ma fight till we see the sunlight.
Now I gotta pick up all my money because I threw it all over the place. Really should have counted how much I had before I did this. Oh, there's a $10 bill. Okay, Chapter 8. Huge chapter. I don't even know how I'm going to talk to you guys about this because there's so much exciting stuff going on. There's a lot of conceptual stuff that you need to know, and there's a lot of mathematical stuff that you need to know. Chapter 8 is activity-based counting, shortened down to ABC for those of us in the know. So, I either recommend watching this YouTube video first. You're probably not going to understand everything I talk about in this YouTube video, but then hopefully when you read the chapter, it'll kind of solidify things. Or on the flip side, if you read the chapter first, you might not understand everything that's going on, but hopefully that this YouTube video can help you clarify things. So with that being said, I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to organize this YouTube video. I think I'm going to focus just on the conceptual stuff and just kind of give you a rough overview of this chapter. Hopefully if you read through the chapter, understand the YouTube video, then you should be able to tackle the math stuff no problem. So, let's do it. The way I'm actually going to do this is that there are questions on page 337 in your textbook. And I'm going to go through a few of those, and I think I'm just going to answer those questions for you guys just to make sure that you understand the main pictures conceptually for this chapter. So, question 1. In what fundamental ways does the activity-based costing differ from traditional costing methods such as those described in chapters 2 and 3? In activity-based costing, non-manufacturing costs as well as manufacturing costs may be assigned to products. This is different than traditional costing because in traditional costing we only assign manufacturing costs to products. So non-manufacturing costs would be those period expenses, right? Those were expensed in the period that they were incurred. And those period costs are usually things that we said would happen in the office building as compared to the factory building, right? So those would be things like your managerial accountant's salary, your human resource people's salaries, your CEO salaries, all the expenses that occurred in that office building. But now, under activity-based costing, we're going to try and take some of those costs and associate them to specific products. And that's the tricky part, or the fun part, about activity-based costing. The second fundamental difference between activity-based accounting and traditional accounting is that while some non-manufacturing costs can be assigned to products, some manufacturing costs will not be assigned to products. An example of this would be idle capacity time. So in traditional costing, we took all those manufacturing costs and we spread them out among the products. In activity-based costing, you're only going to take the manufacturing costs that can be directly traced to products. If you can't be traced to individual products, for example, idle time capacity, you're not going to include it in your calculation. And finally, the third fundamental difference between the two different costing systems is that in activity-based costing, you can have numerous overhead cost pools instead of just one cost pool. So what does that mean? Think about our equation for calculating predetermined overhead rate. We would always take the estimated total manufacturing cost and divide it by one specific allocation base or activity base or overhead cost pool. Some of these were like direct labor hours or machine hours. We would pick one of those, we would divide it by the total estimated manufacturing cost, and that would give you a predetermined overhead rate. Not anymore. In activity-based costing, we can have multiple different overhead cost pools. And we're going to have different activity rates for each of those cost pools. And then we're going to assign those activity rates based on specific products and how much of each cost pool that product uses. Alright, if you're following me on page 337, we're going to skip down to question number 4. What are unit level, batch level, product level, customer level, and organization sustaining activities? Alright, we're going to start at the smallest level of activity and we're going to work our way up. So, unit level activities. These happen on an individual unit basis. So, ask yourself, what kinds of manufacturing and non-manufacturing costs I have that change proportionally based on the number of units I produce. So if you're thinking like manufacturing overhead, think of the electricity to run a machine. Your electricity bill is going to be higher if you have to run that machine for a longer amount of time, which means you're producing more units. So the electricity cost to run a machine would be a unit level activity. Moving up one level, you have batch level activities. Costs relating to batch level activities would be consumed every time that you have to change a product line out from one product to another, or do one batch of a product from another. The easiest example of this is machine setup. You set up a machine, you run 100 units on that setup, and then maybe you have to switch over that machine to do a different product line. Every time you set up that machine again, you're going to incur these kinds of batch level activity costs. And it doesn't matter if you set up a machine, you only run 1 unit through it, and then you set it up again and you run 1,000 units through it, that batch level activity cost is going to be the same whether you do 1 unit or 1,000 units. So the costs aren't based on a unit level. Moving on up, product level activities. These ones only change when different products are involved. So at this level, I don't care how many units you produce, I don't care how many batches you produce, all I care about is each product on an individual basis. These are costs associated with each individual product, no matter how many units of that product you produce. So, one of the most common product level activities. Remember from back in the day when we always talked about factory supervisor salaries as being a manufacturing overhead? Well, now we can specifically say that a factory supervisor salary is probably a product level activity, because each product you produce probably has its own factory supervisor, so you can directly trace that factory supervisor salary to an individual product. Climbing up that ladder some more. Next up, customer level activities. These kinds of activities would be based on a customer level. So for example, you have a customer that orders multiple different products that you have. It doesn't matter about what products they purchase, how many products they purchase, how many units of each different type of product they purchase. It's all a customer level activity. And finally, you have organization sustaining activities. These are usually costs that can't be traced to each individual product at all. You can't trace them to an individual customer. These are just costs that you need to have to run the business. And so we're not really going to be able to allocate them to each individual product. So for an example of organization sustaining activities, cleaning executive offices. You can't trace those janitorial costs back to each individual product. It's just not going to happen. So suck it up and deal with it. And that is Chapter 8 in a very, very small nutshell. There's a lot more going on in Chapter 8. There's no way I can describe it all in this YouTube video, and there's really not enough time for me to describe it all in lecture. So definitely, please, please, please read the chapter very carefully. There's a lot going on. It's going to be confusing, I promise you, but fight through it, struggle through it, try and take a look at a lot of the charts that they give you in the chapter, and hopefully, as a team, we'll figure this out and tackle Chapter 8. Fist pound it for me. Right here. Don't leave me hanging. Damn. Alright, that's all I got. Have a good weekend, guys. Adios, amigos.
Mr. Jackson says you should study accounting to 11 more.